project, I decided to research what the medics had to do during battle and some of the medical advances that happened before the war but had a major impact on World War II. So, World War II was the backdrop for a lot of medical advances. All of these diseases and infections that the war had caused caused a need for new medicines. So, in my opinion, the medics that took place in the war had the most important job, because without them, all the others could have died from infections and bled out, which is not a fun way to die. Okay, so for each medic, for 400 to 500 people, there were 30 medics, which can either be taken as a good thing or a bad thing. It was a good thing because there were more people to fight in the war, but then it was a bad thing because there were less medics to take care of more of the injured people. So many people got injured in the war that it was hard to save all of them. Each medic was supposed to, when they saw a wounded, stop the bleeding, bandage it, and give them morphine if it was needed, which it most likely always. The major injuries, like the ones that needed emergency surgery, could cause worse infections than the doctors were trying to avoid. Like they didn't have sterile supplies, and they couldn't get to a clean, safe area like the surgeries that we have today. They're sectioned off. They had to do it probably in a dirt field, which was not good because the dirt could get into the wound, and there was no way to bandage that up. Some of the medicines that had a great impact on the war were penicillin, atabrine, and sulfanilamide, which were made before the war but were very vital. Sulfanilamide was discovered by a German biochemist while looking at the byproducts of red dye. Sulfanilamide was given to the medics and soldiers in a powder that they could sprinkle in their wounds to prevent it from infections. This was completely an accidental discovery. He was just looking at what went into making red dye, and he found this, and he tested it on his daughter that had strep throat and found that it could kill deadly bacteria. And so then there was penicillin. Penicillin was discovered by Sir Alexander Fleming when he noticed something growing in his petri dish. This happened in 1906, which is 33 years before the war started, but it helped out a lot. At the time, penicillin could cure almost anything, and there were about 400 million doses manufactured during 1943. Next is atropine. Atropine was a bitter pill that was used to cure malaria that was a deadly disease at the time, but is more controllable today. And in 1942, there were around 156,000 recorded cases of malaria alone. Then in 1943, around 60 to 65% of the soldiers serving in the South Pacific were recorded to have malaria at some point. At the time, malaria was mostly cured with atropine and quinine, but they had such a bitter taste that the soldiers did not want to take it. They came up with random excuses, like it gave them short-term psychosis to get out of taking administered during feeding hours by the medics and not just by the soldiers that were in charge of them, because of the accusations of it giving them short-term psychosis. All these medical advances made it easier to manage these diseases, and without them there would be even more fatalities than there were. We have come so far in medicine today, but it was just a really great start, especially because of the year that we